شلام لخ مريم مليف طيبوثة نارا عمناخ مريخات المنشي وموريخ بير خرسيغي شو مات مريم يلدت آلها صلح لا بين حطاهي هاشا وشاق الموتين آمين.
I think I could talk a bit about my own experience. When I was born and as a child, in my area, persecutions were not very intense. We had catechism classes with religious sisters. Every so often, we also had an encounter or talk given by a priest. We were normally able to attend Mass every Sunday. However, when I got a bit older, the persecutions began to intensify. The bishop was removed by the government. In his case, he was imprisoned. Many priests of the diocese were also arrested by the government. A few years later, I wanted to go to confession. I wanted to learn more about my faith, but there was no way of doing so in this situation. That's when I heard the Lord's call. Amidst this situation, this shortage of priests in the church, that's why I decided to enter the seminary, to serve Catholics. So I was really inspired by the previous examples of others, especially the bishops and priests. My life has its difficulties, but there are two things that really help me when I run into difficulties. One thing is the example of others, which always inspires me. The other is hope in the true faith. In other words, today we suffer for Christ, but tomorrow we are guaranteed eternal life. Eternal life is not a theory or something far away from us. It's an imminent reality. This is our faith. When we finish our life in this world, we will pass into eternal life. That is my experience of living our faith. I mean, this has been my experience during these years of my life. Today in China, Catholics make up less than 1% of the population in the country. In regards to the Church's situation in China in general, we could say that there is not much freedom. The Church is persecuted in China. That's a tough question. I think we could specify a bit by saying that the clandestine church is more faithful to the Church of Rome, and the official church, in concrete situations, accepts certain conditions from the government. Among these conditions, for example, is that of grave importance, which states that the Church in China must remain independent from the universal Church. This division came about in the year 1954. At that moment, the Chinese government wanted the entire church to become an instrument of the government. And there were some who, on account of the persecutions, accepted their conditions. However, there was another part that did not accept them. That is why, to this day, we can simply say that there is an official church and a clandestine church. Today, the situation is somewhat complicated. Generally speaking, there is not much contact between these two parts. However, when there is communication, the most important is respect and prayers for one another. We should also keep in mind that this division has not come about from within the church, but is imposed by the government. So I think a minimum of respect can be maintained between these two parts. In regards to this topic, I think we could say that, for example, in China, religious education is outlawed. Other things as well. For example, sometimes persecuted bishops and priests receive a re-education. For example, I know an auxiliary bishop who lived in prison for about 10 years. During those 10 years, he was not allowed to have contact with anyone else. In that sense, we could say that he received a re-education. And by the time he was let out of prison, many of his ideas had changed. In fact, at times, he is very contrary to the church. Take the example of this bishop. The government always had people who were very contrary to the church go to visit the bishop. Another form of re-education was falsifying news from the government in order to mislead the bishop. Finally, after 10 years, this bishop could no longer have any contact with real Catholics. In the end, when he was freed from prison, it was obvious that many of his ideas had changed. I think that in this sense, we can call it a re-education. Recent persecution in China broke out following the rise of communism in the country in 1949. To this day, we could say that there has been constant persecution. At times, the persecution intensifies. Sometimes the persecution is not as intense. I'll give you a concrete example of a certain diocese. For example, the bishop of this diocese died in prison in 1992. The government had the body taken to his house. The bishop who succeeded him is now in prison. He has no freedom. In the diocese, we could say the priests are without freedom. They're under surveillance by the government. The situation has not changed to this day. Perhaps it has improved a little for Catholics in recent years. But for example, 15, 20 years ago, Catholics suffered a very intense persecution. For example, if the government finds out that a house is being used to celebrate Mass or teach catechism, they may even put the owner in jail. Or sometimes the owner is obliged to pay a fine. In that sense, we can say that in general, the Catholic Church in China suffers persecution. We have to tell the truth on this issue. Not all the bishops and priests are in jail, but some of them are. When we say prison in China, it's really a prison. It means a place where they work a lot, and sometimes there's not enough food. All that along with other forms of suffering. Besides the ones in prison, there are also bishops and priests under arrest, in the sense that they are in their homes but cannot leave. Sometimes they live in a government center and are not allowed contact with other people. They cannot visit their families. In that sense, they do not have freedom. And this is why we say that some are literally in prison, where others are under arrest without real freedom. In my experience, I've heard of very few cases. Why? As a priest from my diocese told me, in a situation of persecution, what's most important isn't asking the Lord to relieve us of this situation, but asking for the strength to keep the faith. In that sense, even though there is a persecution, it really helps us to keep our faith and live our faith. In that sense, we always live our faith without abandoning it. I mentioned a certain diocese earlier, and I think I could continue giving more examples from that diocese. For example, this diocese has a seminary. Up until now, there have always been seminarians studying there to become priests. Even when there are difficulties, the church is still alive. For example, the situation of the seminary. Sometimes, not all the seminarians can be in the same place, which is why the seminary in this diocese is divided between two places. Each place has a normal house where they live. Sometimes they are not allowed to leave this house. They study there, pray there, do a bit of exercise and eat there, all in the same place. For us, it sounds like suffering, and yet, to this day, this seminary is still very much alive. There are many seminarians. In that sense, I think we could say that there is still so much life in the persecuted church. This is our faith. I have a personal experience that can serve as an example. Several bishops and priests have died for the faith. In that sense, they are an inspiration to us. When we run into difficulties in this sense, it seems like eternal life is no longer something a long ways off, but something very close to us. We can say, If we suffer for Jesus Christ today we will be granted eternal life. That is why our faith is authentic. This is the faith that overcomes all these difficulties. It means living with hope, the hope of eternal life. In general, they face persecution. Some have a greater freedom. Others barely have any freedom. I know some of the dioceses where persecution is most intense. For example, there, Catholics can only attend Mass in private homes. Children have a hard time finding a priest at any moment for Mass or for confession. That is what makes raising them in the faith an especially important task for their parents and family. So the means for keeping our faith are, for example, the good daily habits of praying together as a family. In these families, parents are the ones who instruct their children in the faith. Then, when they find a priest, they take advantage to have Mass, to go to confession, have a spiritual talk, everything. In that sense, Catholics in China keep their faith even amidst persecution. In China, they are almost impossible. For example, one priest has to minister to several towns with a small number of Catholics. However, only a very reduced number can meet in any given house. In a normal house, the largest number can be up to 40, maybe perhaps 50 people. So not every Catholic can attend Mass every Sunday. And in that sense, we could say that in China, China is still lacking in priestly vocations. To be honest, evangelization for bishops and priests for the clandestine church is very difficult. They are able to evangelize very little in person, I believe. The good thing is that they guide the laity in their evangelization. For example, there are concrete methods. For example, when there are vacation days, they can organize a retreat or a camp without calling it a church activity. There they can study literature, English, math. In addition, they also teach them things about the faith, things about the church. In that sense, it's open not only to Catholic children, but to all children. For example, for students and young people as well. In that sense, we have camps in the mountains, etc. Sometimes it's not just a question of using our faith to evangelize, but we also teach authentic moral values. Another way is through the example of other Catholics. Sometimes there are pagans who convert to the church thanks to their example. I can give a few examples. For example, in China, publishing any religious book, film, or music is forbidden. Using internet in China, for example, is a bit dangerous. For example, with a cell phone. In 2007, I heard of the case of a group of 7 or 8 priests who, after Christmas, wanted to have a meeting to discuss a few pastoral issues. On account of only one of the phone calls of the priests, when they reached their meeting place, the police arrived on the scene and arrested them all. In their case, they were not taken directly to prison, but are being held under arrest in a certain place. In that sense, we could say that there is very little freedom in exterior activities as well. Not usually. Neither the clandestine priest nor the bishops, not even the official bishops. The government does not allow these kinds of things. Moreover, in China, the bishops cannot even keep in contact among themselves. The situation is not the same in every area. In general, in the north, near the capital, persecution is more intense. Another area with strong persecution is the province of Fushan. In general, there's not freedom, but persecution is not as intense as in these two places. That is something I do not know. Studying here in Europe, I hear people say that there will be freedom someday. I think so too, but when? Only God knows. Right now, I'd like to insist once more on the fact that we have to keep the faith. When there are persecutions, what's most important is not asking the Lord for freedom, but keeping our faith, asking for His strength. With that strength, with that perseverance, we will obtain eternal life. It's a difficult situation, which is why in our life we have to manifest our faith in our daily life. I think this is how the faith is really learned. We could say that if we have the building of a church, we can go to Mass, we can go to confession, we can go to catechism class, and those things are all very important. However, when we do not have those things, I think we have to manifest our faith in other ways. For example, prayer can be done at home. For example, we can give a moral testimony in our everyday life. In this way, we profess our faith.
En esta manera se profesa nuestra fe.
We could say that persecutions are a type of purification within the Church. When there are purifications, there may be a few Catholics who abandon their faith. In that sense, we could say that they do not really have faith. However, most of us keep the faith. In these purifications, we always feel closer to the Lord. I'm always very happy to talk on the subject, and it inspires great devotion in me. Thanks to Chinese culture or the Church's tradition in China, we have a very profound Marian devotion. In this sense, we feel the importance of the mother in our faith. We can simply say, what does the word mother mean? What is mother? We all have our own experience of this. When we came home from school as children, we spontaneously told our mother, Mom, I want to eat this or that food today, or tomorrow, don't forget to give me money to buy books. We said it with great simplicity and trust. Likewise, I think we can place our hope in our mother, the Blessed Virgin Mary, and count on her help. We always pray to our mother with great simplicity and trust. And I think that today, if the persecuted church is keeping the faith, it is thanks to the help of Our Lady. I think that in reference to the environment in Europe, the most important thing today is to take good advantage of our freedom and manifest our faith in the Church. We should also manifest our faith in our everyday life. At this moment, I would like to say something. I'm a bit disappointed to see how at times in countries with freedom, people do not want to enter the church. And then in the opposite situation, in persecuted countries, Catholics want to enter the church, but there is no church. So I'd like to tell those listening to take advantage of this freedom. In your daily life as well, bear witness to our faith. Another thing, lastly, I would like to ask you all to pray for the persecuted church and manifest our faith in your daily life. Today there are also many pagans who do not know the church and complain of the bad examples in the church. In this sense, perhaps it is not as direct of a help to them, but it is very important that we manifest our faith in our daily life, which implies being an example for others. Thank you for your attention.